Hello, everyone. This is part 3 of Constructed Accumulated Knowledge. I'm Dan Ward from Catskill, New York, Silver Level Pro, and we're going to be going over today what has changed in the metagame since SEG Knoxville happened. We had a standard tournament, pretty big one, and we want to talk about that and how the influence from the online metagame has changed, not necessarily the entire deck, but some of the sideboard cards, and get into a little bit of gameplay today and give those of you that haven't seen the deck in action a little feel. So here we go. Hello again, and here we are at part 3 of Constructed Accumulated Knowledge. And today, as I discussed in the intro, we're going to be doing some stuff going over SEG Knoxville while touching base on what the online metagame's got going on, and kind of going over the deck, and we're going to start with that. So I'm going to pull the deck up here. For those of you that this may be your first episode, we started with Black-Green Marvel, and as you can see, we have Cody Marvel. This stands for Cody Lingelbach. I'm working with him. He's a good friend of mine, and we have come to the agreement that we love this version a lot better than the Black-Green version. So, I'm going to talk about the differences that this version has going on real quick, and then we'll kind of get into the metagame breakdown. So, I could sit here and read off all the cards, but I'm pretty sure everyone has eyes and they can look at them. I just want to highlight a couple cards, specifically Descend Upon the Sinful. This card right here is bonkers. It's been identified as one of the really big cards in all 3 of the matchups that we're trying to beat. And I alluded to that in the last show as far as White-Blue Flash, Black-Green Delirium, and Mardu / Red-White Vehicles. This is just a card that you always want to have. You're going to get to Delirium, and it's just the exile effect is huge, but more importantly, just the clearing away the board and leaving something that your opponent has to deal with is a big deal. 6 mana is a decent amount, but when you're cheating it into play with Marvel, it's not that bad, and you can just play this as an instant on their turn utilizing the Marvel. So right away, the biggest differences that this deck has going on is that this deck's way more controlling than the previous builds. You saw like the first iteration of the deck had 4 Emrakul and 2 Ulamogs, and it had Demon of the Dark schemes, and it had Noxious Gearhulk, and things that I guess the Demon and Noxious Gearhulk are more controlling, but like way more Eldrazi. So we were like, our big plan was to hit them. And if we didn't hit them, then pretty much we were losing. Whereas you can see this build has a lot more mid-range going on with it. We still have Ishkanograph Widow. We have added Nahiri with getting white instead of black, and also not having blue for the puzzle knots, from that iteration. This card, just go into a little bit, Planeswalker, is really good in the metagame right now because versus the mid-range and control decks, you're just going to put up something that they really have a hard time answering, and it provides inevitability. As well as versus like Smuggler's Copters decks, any of the artifact decks, it's very good. Just being able to eat something, eat a creature the turn after. It's just one of those cards that right now I think is positioned extremely well. And in this deck, it's like sometimes just looting a card away and then having them kill it, this sounds crazy, just gains you enough life as well as gets another type in your graveyard that you don't have a lot of. There's only 2, so. Most of the other parts of this deck are the same. We still have Emrakul. We're down to 3. We have 4 Marvels, 4 Puzzle Knots, 4 Servants. We get to play 4 Harness Lightnings. And I like this a lot because in the Black-Green version, we were playing Grasp of Darkness because we wanted a clean way to deal with Smuggler's Copter and, Spell Queller. And this kind of does that, but also kills some of the other creatures that we could never kill with Grasp, as well as being a ritual for when we just need energy. So I think this is just a straight upgrade, and I've been really happy with it so far. 4 Tunes, 4 Vessels, 2 Traverse. So this is a card I had to convince Cody was good at first, and he was like, why are you running Traverse? It's kind of crazy. And we had like a different mana base, and I was like letting him know that like I think it's very important that having a lot of spells on turn 1 that are just 1 green, because we have a ton of green sources, it's very significant to being able to fix our mana, as well as, I alluded to earlier, when we get to Delirium, having a Demonic Tutor effect is very strong in this deck. It's just one of those cards where Black-Green Delirium really utilizes it really well, and I think this deck can also. So we only have 2 because we want to play enough lands. We want to play 21 lands. We don't really want to flood out on lands. And I don't really want to cut any more threats. I think our threat density is right where it needs to be. Like, I could see playing 3. I don't really want 4. Turn 1, I always want to play a Tune first. Or Vessel. So it's just a really good card, but it's one of those really good cards that you only want 2 of. So unlike Nahiri's legendary. So if I put 4 in the deck, I'd be kind of psychotic because there's going to be a lot of points where I can only have 1 in play, and then I have 1 in my hand, and if I draw a third, it'd be like really bad. So we don't want to do that. And the last card here is a card that we just started testing. I just started testing. I'm trying to get Cody onto it. It's Blister Pod. Yes, I said Blister Pod. This card's really good. And what I mean by really good is it's really good at doing one thing, dying. And that's exactly what we want it to do in this deck. For 1 mana, it fits the category of being 1 green, being very mana efficient. It fits also right into where we need creatures getting in the graveyard. It's pretty easy to get lands, between vessels, attunes. We don't have too many instants either, and obviously not a lot of planeswalkers. But like artifacts can get in the graveyard pretty easily. But if we don't have a servant, it's kind of tough to get creatures in the graveyard early. And so this does a couple things. Versus the aggressive decks, it just can chump and gain like 3 life while putting out another body, which can also chump. But the Scion token is real, so it has a Delirium aspect, which we talked about. But putting a token into play that you can just sacrifice to advance your mana now says that like maybe you could play Marvel a turn earlier. You could play maybe Ishkana a turn earlier, but most importantly, you could play Descend Upon the Sinful when you need to play it like on turn 5, which I've done multiple times with Blister Pod. Originally, I had it in the sideboard, and I just thought about it, and I'm like, man, this is just better than Kozilek's Return. Because, unfortunately, Kozilek's Return is only good versus the creature decks you want it on the play. And so, like, it hasn't been good versus black-green, and I don't think it's I think it's marginally good versus blue-white. And so, the matchups you wanted are versus, like, black-red aggro, black-red zombies, and red-white / Mardu vehicles. And with having, like, Inventor's Apprentice, Smuggler's Copter, different cards like that, there's not as many hits for Kozilek's Return as you really want. So I'd rather be able to just advance my mana and then be more mana efficient, because usually that on turn 3 means I'm not doing one of the turn 2 plays, or I'm not sacking a vessel, or I'm not sacking a puzzle knot to get up to that energy count where I want. So this is the new 60. The sideboard I can kind of spread out for you real quick, and we'll just run down the line. We got a utility package here of 1 Ulamog, 1 World Breaker, 1 Linvala, and 1 Sigarda. Yes, Sigarda is really sweet. You have it in play. It happened to me yesterday. My opponent cast Emrakul, and guess what? They don't get my extra turn. So that was kind of nice. 3 Tireless Trackers, 1 Appetite. Whoa, hey. 1 Appetite for the Unnatural to go along with 3 Natural States. The main reasoning behind that is we're playing 2 Nahiris, so we don't necessarily need a lot of Appetites. And the cards we want to be killing are like Smuggler's Copter, Stasis Snare, everything that, yet again, I'll stress the 1 green is very important, and that this hits. Dragon Master Outcast kind of goes in the utility package with the other 4 creatures, the 4 big creatures. It only costs 1, but Control's coming back a little bit, and I wanted another card that I could land that, like, Negate doesn't hit, Ceremonious Rejection doesn't hit. Like, they have to have a Void Shatter or a Summary Dismissal for this card most of the time, because they don't keep in a ton of removal or are using the removal on Tireless Tracker. So it just adds to the threat density versus the control matchups. And last but not least, Tears of the Valakut. I only bring this in versus blue-white, and I haven't played a lot of it online lately, so I'm hoping that maybe today we'll play a few times, and we'll get to test this card out a little bit. Most of the big guys are self-explanatory. We want to, diversify our threat package versus decks that are playing like Lost Legacy and, that kind of effect, and being able to be diverse, like with having Traverse the Uvenwald. Traverse and diverse, they go together. And having that package to be able to go, oh, well, World Breaker is just really good here. We need to get rid of their Marvel, or we need to get rid of one of their lands that's causing us problems. Whereas, like I mentioned, how good Sigarda can be versus the Emrakul decks, while just being able to just spew out tokens and kill people pretty quick. And like Linvala, just a overall powerful card versus some of the rush decks when you don't necessarily need that third Emrakul, but you could use a Linvala. You can realistically cast this card, especially with running Descend. You'll get to a point where maybe you'll Descend and you didn't have Delirium, and then they put out a critical mass of secondary threats where they're just like, here's the second wave. And you just gaining 5 life and putting another flyer out is a pretty big deal. So, all right, so that's enough on the deck. I want to go into a metagame breakdown update before we get into a couple matches here. So first off, I want to talk about SEG Knoxville. This is the tournament that happened this last weekend. Brad Nelson crushed it. And my main focus is looking at the top 16. And to me, I didn't get to watch too much. I watched a little bit of the coverage this weekend. I was watching a lot of football, unfortunately, for SEG. And I watched Worlds. Worlds was great. So we got a ton of Black-Green Delirium and Blue-White Flash, as there's no surprise. But Jeskai Control came in second place. I think this is something that I want to pay attention to. I've played a couple Control decks this past week online, and it's not necessarily the greatest matchup. So, something that's a little unfamiliar territory, getting into testing-wise. The Black-Green Deliriums and the Blue-White Flashes, it's really good that they're still doing well because we are prepared for these matchups, and I feel like they're fine now for our decks. The sideboard plan for Blue-White Flash is actually better in the red version than it ever was in the Black-Green version. And the Black-Green Delirium, I've gotten to the point now where I really feel comfortable playing that matchup, and I can't tell you enough how good Descent Upon the Sinful is in this deck. It's been super busted. We started off with 3, and I cannot believe I have 4 in the deck, but it's that good. So, and then we're walking down here. We got a lot of Flash. We have more Delirium. We have White-Red mid-range. So, the format's getting to be, a little bit more control-oriented. Control's coming back, so the mid-range decks are coming out. Or I should say, rather, the mid-range decks have been doing well, and so that means control will be coming back. So I'm not surprised to see Andrew Tenjum here rocking White-Red mid-range. And then we have a couple vehicle decks. We have some zombies. Nothing that really stands out to me. We had a Black-Green Aetherworks Marvel deck. I took a look at this list, and it wasn't really close to the one that we started this series with. I can pull it up real quick. We were playing, I guess it's not like that far off, but there's just a lot more value going on here with Noxious Gearhulks, Liliana, the Veils, of the Last Hope. If the Veil would be awesome. And you can see the sideboard, we're talking like Kalidas, Flailing Tendrils, World Breaker, the Trackers, which are pretty standard. But we're not trying to go as big, I guess, as I was originally doing with like having the Ulamogs. But you could see that I guess it's easier to get to Delirium in this deck because you're playing like actual Planeswalkers. So this is an interesting version of it. It's not that I don't like it, but I don't think it's doing enough to warrant playing Aetherworks Marvel. I think Aetherworks Marvel, you want to be playing like some really busted things or doing things when people can't really expect them because that's like the power of the card. So, all right, so we talked about like Black-Green, 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 and Blue-White Flash. I want to get into Brad's list and kind of go over a couple things with the sideboard. So the main deck is pretty standard, and playing Aetherworks Marvel deck, traditionally you want to know the important cards that your opponent's going to be playing against you. So knowing that like Transgress the Mind is one of the cards that hurts you, and one of the big things is Lost Legacy. A lot of the Marvel decks really can, get crushed by that card. Whereas we've devised, myself and Cody, a plan to just not focus as going big anymore as going wide. And so you could see that Brad doesn't even have Lost Legacy in his sideboard. He's decided to play multiple Pick the Brains, which they're fine cards too. There's no doubt about it. But for those of you that are worried about Lost Legacy, like I definitely suggest going on a little of a wider approach with this deck. And a couple situations that's happened recently in the last week is my opponent has lost legacied me. In actually one match, I got lost legacy twice and took all my Emrakuls. And I think the next card they went to take was Ishkana. And I was just crossing my fingers and hoping that they just didn't take Descend Upon the Sinful. And they didn't. And I was just like, the thing that's going on in this matchup is that the Black-Green Delirium players don't really understand, but that's like the most important card. And I want to stress that a lot. So if this is a deck that you want to pick up and play, not the Black-Green Delirium, the Marvel deck, I guess we're calling it Naya Cody Marvel now, that is the most important card. You want to, focus on getting to that card. You want to be able to set up the Marvel on your opponent's turn, which we're going to hopefully get to do a couple times when we play a couple games, and realize that like you don't need to snap off the Marvel right away because we're playing more of a mid-range deck. So, identifying the cards that we need to worry about from the sideboard from Brad's. We have the Pick the Brains and the Transgresses are the big one, noting that there is a second Emrakul and that most Black-Green Delirium players will be bringing in another Emrakul versus us. Just good thing to note. And that's pretty much it with Brad's list. Let's see if we can pull one more up, and let's look at Eric's list. Is it the same? Okay, so it's a little different. There's no no Transgresses main. He has both of them in the second, in the sideboard, as well as two Pick the Brains, and I guess we need to note that Nissa and Emrakul, and I guess even Ob Nixilis. Planeswalkers are kind of hard for us to deal with. We need to actually just attack through them because we don't have any way of really eating them up main deck. So taking into account that most, I guess, of the Black-Green players that did well at this tournament, we're not running Lost Legacy, which is fine for us. And even better that they're only running two Transgress the Minds. We see Appetite for the Unnatural. I'm not too worried about this card because I'm traditionally not playing the Marvel unless I have 4 energy. 6 energy. But I guess it kind of depends. Knowing that both lists are only playing 1, and I'll pull Brad's up real quick. No, he's not even playing 1. So I guess that most lists are playing 1 or none. We'll pull one random list here. Christopher Grant also did really well. Yeah, so most lists are running 1, which is great because that means the odds of them drawing a Transgress are way higher, so we can just slam it on 4 because we don't want it to get Transgressed out of our hand or Pick the Brain, especially after sideboard. Whereas they only have one of these, and if they have it, then they have it kind of thing. Note, Christopher did come in 4th place, and he had a Lost Legacy. So, yet again, that goes to some players are going to have it, some players aren't. This is a card that a lot of people's opinions have varied on that, so... Alright, so we went into the Black-Green Delirium. We talked about the Blue-White Flash. Now let's talk a little bit more, but we're going to move off of the SCG tournament and go right into Goldfish. As you can see, Blue-White Flash is still the #1 player online, but I want to talk about how the metagame, look at the percentages now. Just in this last week, the metagame percentage has jumped up. If we tie together Black-Green and Blue-White, we have literally 50% of the metagame. And it's been a while since we've had 2 decks that, that solid. Like, we've had decks, we've had formats where, Standard has Mono Black Pack Rat. We've had Collected Company, which is, the most recent, which is a huge number. But these are 2 decks that are not equal, like, percentage-wise, but they're pretty close, and they're both very good decks. So this is a good sign for our deck. Like I said, we've been preparing to beat these decks. We want these decks to still be around. Now let's go a little deeper. We have Mardu Vehicles, which we talked about as the 3rd deck. And after that, we have Green-Red Aetherworks. So the Mardu Vehicles, just to touch base, they have the same amount of meta percentages online as, last episode when we checked in. And so this is kind of just one of those decks that's just lingering around, and certain people are playing it and doing well with it. But not necessarily as popular as the 2 big ones. Now, the deck that's kind of taken off is Green-Red Aetherworks. In the last episode, I brought up streamer Jabberwockies, and he's been crushing it. He's got 27 undefeated trophies on Moto, and he did really well and won the... pull up the deck real quick here. What tournament was it? It was the Standard Champs. Went 7-0 with the deck and was just crushing people online with it when I was watching the stream. And, I alluded to it before, but this is a deck now that has, like we're trying to do, gone a little bit wider than bigger. And I think it's reaped the benefits of knowing that these good decks are going to be at the top. Without a pure control deck, like really dominating, it allows the Aetherworks Marvel decks to kind of linger around, and especially these ones that go wide, that have planeswalkers that are hard to deal with Black-Green Delirium and White-Blue Flash. Like, it can really be a really powerful deck, and that's why we're kind of playing it, but we're going one level higher and playing the Splash for a card that I believe to be very good, and I can't stress this enough. Descend Upon the Sinful. You're going to hear me say it in this episode probably 20, 30 times because that's how good the card is. And scrolling down here, we kind of go into the other decks that we were talking about. We have Black-Red Zombies, Black-Red Aggro. These are decks that, as you can see, 5% of the metagame online. They're going to be decks that you're going to see at the Grand Prix, and we want to have a plan for, but not necessarily are going to be a deck that you play 5-6 times in a day. Red-White Vehicles. Percentage here is 3.8, so basically 4%, and White-Red Humans is only 1% online right now, but just definitely a deck that I want to pair together and / be ready for. So I've seen more Red-White Humans online, I guess, than that percentage dictates. And they're very close to similar decks. The Humans has a little bit more going on with Thalia Lieutenant and Hanwear Garrison. They have the little human interactions going on, whereas the Vehicles have a lot more of the artifact interactions going on. But they're both very fast and aggressive decks, kind of part of the reason between all these aggressive decks that I wanted to play Blister Pod. I think it excels really well. It trades with cards like Toolcraft Exemplar, which I really love. It trades with the 3/1 Scry 2 guy. So I'm really, really pumped up about adding Blister Pod to the deck. I don't think you've ever heard that anywhere ever. Really excited to play Blister Pod. So just going over the meta, we didn't see dramatic changes. We've seen the rise in the Aetherworks Marvel deck, which I'm not surprised with there not being a main control player like, I alluded to. And the biggest jump is the White-Blue Flash has just been gaining more and more popularity. So Black-Green over the last 2 weeks has steadily, shrunk down and went from 30% to 20%. And that may be a sign that we want to just, look a little bit deeper into and realize what's going on. Is White-Blue Flash changing a few cards to beat up on Black-Green Delirium? It's just something we want to pay attention to. Definitely looking at and going back here to the White-Blue Flash deck. We see Revolutionary Rebuff is something that is a little different. Some lists have put it in the sideboard, but main decking it, I think, is a big deal. We've seen Bruna and Gisela package before, but this is still something that not a lot of blue-white Flash players I see both in their sideboard. So this is something we want to take into account. And we have other cards like Blessed Alliance. We have Emulating Glare. This sideboard from Chris, I think, is a lot different than most blue-whites. And it's just something, like I said, with 2 weeks out from the tournament, we definitely want to keep our eye on this because we want to know what our opponent's bringing in, and we want to be able to counteract that with our sideboard cards. So just keep this in mind as we're moving on. All right, so we kind of did our metagame breakdown, our metagame update, I should say. And now let's get into a few games with the deck. So here we are. I'm going to play. We got a league match going on. Here we go. And while we're waiting, I can pull the deck back up. So we still have a couple things that we're definitely trying out. Singarda and Linvala I really like, but I'm not 100% sure they have a home. I guess Dragon Master Outcast kind of falls in that category as well. Like I said, I wanted more cards for the control matchups because I think the Black-Green Delirium matchup is very good for us. And I believe the Vehicles matchups are very good for us as well. I think this version, comparatively speaking to the last couple versions that we've shown on episodes 1 and 2, we're a lot more to the one game plan where we wanted to just go big, go big, go big. And we have a lot more play with this version. And I think getting Delirium is a lot easier. And we're going to join. All right, let's do it. We got a hand here. So we're on the draw. Our opponent's mulled the 6. We're definitely going to keep. This is part of the reason why we want to have as many green, 1 mana green plays as possible. Okay, so here we go. We're going to pay a green, we're going to attune, and we're going to get a forest. Then next turn we can do Servant, which will be good. And now we're in line for if our opponent doesn't play anything, we can Nihiri off the Scrap Heap Scavenger. And we could take 3 here. That's not necessarily a big deal. I want to be able to ramp up, possibly. If he doesn't have a play, there's a good chance. Could just play another one. Okay, so we got some tokens. Another Servant. That's fine. All right, so here we're going to attune, and we have double Aether Hub, so I'm not necessarily worried about getting to double white since we have it already. So the next land, if we search out, we'll definitely get a Plains. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to block here. Oh, the Bushwhacker. All right. Our opponent does not have black, so we can definitely chump block the Scrap Heap Scavenger here. And then we can eat this guy. So let's do this. If we do that, and we can leave this guy to block, because there'll still be artifacts for this thing. We're going to eat it, and then we can chump. I guess we could just chump this now. We'll just kill... Let's kill a Servo. Yep, that's fine. Well, we have 3 cards now. We're going to get Nihiri in there. We have sorceries. I'm going to eat up the Toolcraft Exemplar as we talked about. And this way I can go get... Well, we just keep getting... We just keep getting... Yeah, not much we could do. Alright, so we could have played Nihiri there, but I'm just going to take... Oh, well, now we're in trouble. We are in trouble. Alright, we needed to descend, but even there I think we'd be in trouble. I could have played Nihiri last turn and ate this, but then Nihiri dies. We still don't get to Delirium, and we're in danger of getting killed by Needle Spires. So I think this game is for naught, but let's do this. And let's sacrifice the vessel and see if we can do something here. I guess we could draw that. So there's Woodweavers. Yeah, I think it's a turn too late. If we would have let Nihiri die, we might have had him. But we've gained 6, and our opponent's got 6 here. So yeah, let's concede. Let's go to the sideboard. Alright, so we don't have too much anymore for the sideboard for this deck. I think we're going to bring in Natural States. In fact, I know we're going to bring in Natural States. And we don't really need to bring too much else in. Harness Lightnings are fine. Blister Pods. We're going to cut a few things. We're going to cut Nihiri. I want to go down to 1 copy. I'm going to go down a copy of Emrakul, and I want to go down a copy of Harness Lightning. We don't really need this. We have Traverse to get to it eventually. This is going to be our big payoff card, and yeah, I think that's fine. Linvala. We could play Linvala in this, but we don't necessarily need it. Like I said, I think this matchup's fine. Our opponent mulled to 5, but our hand just didn't go anywhere. So here we go. Yep, we're gonna mull. All right, this hand's not great, but not terrible. The fact that we're gonna get to Delirium, we have 3 lands. I like that. We'll keep it on top. The more lands, the merrier. We need to get to 6 to cast this anyway. We want to make sure we can get there. So. Turn 1 Vessel. Needle Spires. Great for us. We can pass. Let's get our graveyard up. That's fine. We got Marvel, huh? Yeah, we'll take the Marvel. Now we have Delirium, which is good. Alright. Now we want to be looking for like a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. And yeah, okay. Yep, the beats come in. Okay. Well, he's not messing around, that's for sure. Alright, so there's our Woodweavers. It's good. Let's see what we get here. Alright, so we have a natural state. Not really doing anything. So, excuse me. We're at the point now where I think we just have to play the Marvel, because then next turn we could play the Puzzle Knot and... we could play the Puzzle Knot and sack it and then Marvel on his turn. Fragmentize will be bad for us, but there's nothing we can really do about it, so... If we were to play the Puzzle Knot, we won't have enough energy here. So that's a good thing. Yeah, that'll put us up there. So let's do this. Let's get a white source. And then we'll play the Puzzle Knot. And we'll pass. We don't have to worry about dying here unless there's a land, a Servo Expedition, and a Bushwhacker. That'd be bad. Thalia's coming in, so let's respond to Thalia, unfortunately. Do we want to respond to Thalia? Alright, so here's the tough thing that I have. If we respond to Thalia and we hit Emrakul, or we hit Ishkana, they all come into play tapped. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I got a better plan. We're just going to take it. Yeah, let's take it. Yeah. And then we're just going to hardcast it. Bang. Yeah, there's concessions. Get out. Big surprise. We cast Descent upon the Sinful. We won. We did it. We did it. Yeah, now opponent's going to be a little bit more aggressive if that wasn't, you know, shown as possible in the first match. We didn't see Smuggler's Copter, but we have to assume that our opponent has it. I'm going to cut 1 for the other Harness Lightning to come back. Just because if those are the only 2 targets, we don't really want to go over the top. I guess I could have brought in an Appetite as well. That wouldn't have been bad. So, all right. Yeah, this is another hand where it's a builder hand. And I like it a lot. And what I mean by a builder hand is we don't have the Marvel. We don't have anything that we're trying to go big yet. But this is the setup cards. And sometimes they're the more important cards. So, okay. We're going to go get white and then say go. Sure. The expedition is real. Alright, well, there's another land. Sure. I will block. I'm going to take 3 again. That's fine. Really? Yeah, snap block. Another expedition? Okay. Sure. So, what are we doing here? We're going to natural state off of this. So we're going to be able to block. I would like to traverse to get another green. Is that what we want to do? We have Aether Hub. Yeah, let's traverse. Oh, we got to draw first. Let's draw first. Drawing is good. We might draw green. No, we didn't draw green. Yeah, we have this already, so let's get green. Ooh, what do we got? Alright, another inspector. Sure. I think we double block here. The first strike damage will kill one, but it won't kill both. And then... yeah, we're going to lose one of our guys, but that's okay. And then normal damage will kill his, so that's fine. Sure. We've kind of stabilized here, actually, so... because now I want to attune, but I think we will have to do this first. Because we can just make our opponent now have to... attack in. And it has no good attacks unless the servant's killed, which I'm pretty cool with. Yeah, Gideon. Okay. All your guys are big, sure. Alright, well, Nahiri's dead. Alright, Ishkana, come to daddy. Or traverse. Traverse! Alright. So, we need that. Let's play this. Let's play this. And let's traverse. Alright, so here we can get Ishkana Graf Widow, which is the card that I want to get. Emrakul we don't have enough to go off yet with. But we want to set it so I can block next turn. And our opponent's probably going to sack the clue. Try to draw something. Yep, that's fine. 3-4. Oh, here comes the Bushwhacker. Oh, that's not good. He's trying to get as much damage in as possible. I can't blame him for that. So I could kill this here and go to 1. I think that's probably better. Because I don't know how I'm going to die at 1. I'm trying to think, is there something that's going to kill me right away? Probably not. So let's use the Vessel. Now, that's interesting. We have the Marvel and the Puzzle Knot. We're going to go to 1. I think I'm just going to get the Marvel here. Because I can activate it off the Vessel. Yep, we're at 1. Alright. Ishkana's out and about. We kind of put our opponent on having to draw a declaration to kill us here. And if he doesn't, then I think we untap and win. Yes, okay, great. All right. Now we're in real good position. because we are at 7 delirium, and yep, 7 delirium. Sure. Yeah, let's get the guy. Yeah. Moment of truth. Ishkanah Graf Widow, Emrakul the Promised End. Let's go Emrakul the Promised End, right? Then we'll have enough to block everything. Or should I go spiders? Yeah, our opponent can't have that, right? There's no way. There's no trample. We have 5, sure. Here we go. Triggers. And our opponent has conceded. All right. Well, there is one match we got to play against the Mardu super aggressive build of the vehicles. We didn't see too much vehicles, so maybe it was just super aggressive. I was going to play multiple matches, but we only have time for one. So that's going to do it. Hopefully you got a little bit more understanding of where we are with the deck at this current juncture. Going over the online metagame as well as the real-life metagame, which I've kind of emphasized. It's very important to be aware of what's going on in both. And moving forward, you've seen the decks now have every single color that Magic can provide. And I think we're, slowly getting to a hard lock 75. We're probably, I want to say, after playing a few games with this and, winning one match that you just saw is definitely not something that I'm like putting all the marbles in on. This is as close to the finalized version of the deck as I could see getting. And what I mean by that is there's going to be some tweaks and peaks in our final episode where I give you the deck the week prior to the tournament, which will be Monday, I think, on the 28th or Tuesday on the 29th. And that will be, pretty much the down and dirty of what I'm going to be playing. There may be 1 or 2 card difference that I change, but I think myself and Cody are going to, chat about a few things and test a little bit more. So this is the current deck, and if you'd like to see some more games, I will be streaming it Tuesday and Thursdays from 12 to roughly 2 to 3 o'clock. And come check us out on Twitch. KerwinsGameStore.com is our website where we have all of our videos posted. And yeah, so hopefully everyone got a better understanding with this week's episode, and look forward to doing next week's episode to see what we can learn moving forward. So until then, I'm Dan Ward, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Later.
People of Kaladesh, whether you hail from distant fields or greenbelt towns or from our great city centers, this is your time. The Kaladesh Inventors Fair invites you, our best and brightest, to share your ingenuity with the world. As an official entrant, you may fuel your creativity with unrestricted ether access. Demonstrate that you can channel the ether into bold, new creations. Showcase your ideas, your inventions, your genius. In this time when anything is buildable, you can invent your tomorrow